Welcome to Personality Speaking, where the tea is always hot. This show is dedicated to helping you build healthier, stronger relationships through the understanding of the personalities. Our show airs every week on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In case you don't know me, my name is Karen Ward. I'm an advanced certified personality trainer, speaker, and personality coach, and the author of the book, Couple for Life, Overcoming Personality Differences in Marriage. Whew! Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. All right. We in this show, we focus on the four personality styles that were developed by the world renowned and late Florence Littauer. Those four personality traits that she developed are the popular sanguine, the powerful choleric, the perfect melancholy, and the peaceful phlegmatic. To learn more about those terms, you can go to my website, beyond2llc.com. That's BEYONDTWOLLC.com. So you can get more information about the personalities, and you can purchase your own personality assessment so you can figure out who you are. I'm excited tonight. I'm excited to introduce my sister girlfriend who I love. She's my sister from another mister. I love her dearly, Dr. Sandra Rice Hardy. We're going to be talking about nurturing the personalities, self-care in marriage and ministry. So let me introduce her before we say, hey. Dr. Sandra Rice is the founder of Sandra Rice Incorporated and Rice Development LLC. She is a motivational speaker, organizational leader, advisor, and thought leader. Yes, she is. Dr. Sandra has more than 25 years of professional speaking, leadership, and entrepreneurial experience. During her career, she has successfully overseen and completed more than $500 million in construction and development projects across the United States. Dr. Sandra has received numerous awards and recognition, including founding and leading one of the nation's top 100 largest Black businesses by Black Enterprise Magazine. Woo! She provides vision, strategy, and corporate leadership worldwide to organizations and executive leaders. Dr. Sandra received a Master's of Science degree in education from Medill. Is it Medill? Medaille College in Buffalo, New York, and a doctorate in organizational leadership from Pepperdine University, Los Angeles, California. Dr. Sandra enjoys helping leaders cultivate personal power, wellness, and extraordinary leadership functioning as they navigate the new era of transformation, innovation, and disruption. She has been featured on numerous publications worldwide. Dr. Sandra Hardy is the First Lady of the House of Judah Ministries in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or as they say in Baton Rouge, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with her husband, Dr. Lawrence D. Hardy, who's the senior pastor. They reside in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with their children. Welcome, my sister, to Personality Speaking. I'm so excited to have you here.
I am so excited to be here today, this evening, or wherever anyone is this evening. So great to be here with you and to celebrate personalities tonight. You know, I always love what you do. I affectionately call you Dr. Karen. I love what you do because I believe the personalities are so important in self-awareness and growing, whether it's spiritually, naturally, and whatever you're up to, whatever God has given you to steward over. It's so important that you understand who you are, and especially when you are in a relationship and when you are in a marriage and when you are in ministry.
So true. Because if you didn't have the ministry component, the marriage thing, you really need to understand each other so that you can just navigate that, bringing two people together, right? Right. And becoming as one. In order for you to do that, you've got to understand each other's personality. And then to add the ministry component to that, You better understand each other's
Yeah.
personalities.
And then how do you care for yourself in the midst of all of that, and in the midst of disruption, and in the midst of everything that is going on worldwide? How do you
Yes.
navigate all of those things? So I think tonight is going to be an amazing show. I believe that it's going to be an empowering and inspiring show, and it's going to also give us some tools to really reach and really climb that next level.
Amen. Amen. Now, you already got comments coming already. You are a true leader of leaders, and that is no lie. A true leader of leaders. She has given me such sage advice over the years, and she has really spoken over my life. So I really appreciate you more than you will ever know. I just remember how we met. Do you remember how we met?
Yeah, I remember. Yes, I remember. Well, tell me. Wait, how do we meet?
We
I
met
remember.
through our sister girlfriend,
Yes, our
Dr.
sister
Celeste
and friend,
Owens.
our beloved Dr. Celeste Owens, who is no longer with us right now. But that is how we met many years ago, through Dr. Celeste. She introduced us. She was like, "You got to meet Karen," and then she told Karen, "You got to meet Sandra," and then it's just been a whirlwind ever since.
It sure has been. And I'm just so thankful too, because we got to not only be in ministry together. We were
Yeah.
in one of Dr. Celeste's ministries, which was called the Elite 13, and it was 13 women in business or ministry that were in a place of transformation. And so we got to meet there and become sisters in that program. And then outside of that program, you have just been such a blessing to my life, speaking over my life, helping me to see where God is taking me. And so, if anybody else doesn't know you to be a leader of leaders, I certainly do. So, I thank you for doing that. And I wanted to ask you too, what is your personality style? Do you know what it is? Because I do.
Yes, I know you do. Yes, I do know. I am choleric. And I hope you're going to explain the personalities too, Karen, before we get into this, because I think it's so important. I know we have a lot of people that are going to be on tonight that may not understand the personalities in that format. And I think once you understand the clarity, and especially the way you do personality training, and I hope everybody gets the assessment after this, because it's so important. I mean, when I got that assessment, I loved it. I studied it. But I am choleric and I am melancholy.
Yes, you are. And
So,
cholerics are
so you got to tell
bosses.
people. So you got to tell people about my personality in that way. What is the choleric melancholy personality?
So a choleric, number one, is a boss. It's a born leader. It's a mover and a shaker. They get more things done in the morning than most of us get done all week long. They don't play any games. They're highly accomplished. They are set out to accomplish whatever they set out to accomplish. They not only hit the mark, but they exceed the mark. They're always looking to do better every time. So that's a choleric personality, and that's definitely your personality. And they're leaders, right? Born leaders. And as somebody said here, true leader, you're a true leader of leaders. And so that makes sense, because you're normally running the show wherever you go. The melancholy part of your personality is a deep thinker, and you are a deep thinker, highly intelligent. It's a person that is compassionate. They care about not only themselves, but they care about other people all over the world. They are change. Your choleric is a change agent, and I always say a choleric is strategic. They are the melancholy is a planner, and the choleric is an executor. And when you have them in the same personality styles, so you have a primary and a secondary, you are a planner and an executor all in one body. So
All in one body. That is
all in
me.
one body. All in one body. But you're serious minded and you're purposeful as a melancholy. And all of those things I've seen you walk out in your whole life. Like your whole life is about purpose. It's about getting things done. It's about making things happen. It's about transforming and being a change agent in this world. And when you say you are a thought leader, yes, ma'am. Yes, you provoke thought. You make people understand where they're going and how they're going to get there. So I just thank you for being here. And that is who you are. Now, the other two personality styles are the sanguine and the phlegmatic, right? The sanguine is my personality. That's my primary. And we're fun lovers. Like everything we do has to be fun. We have to laugh and enjoy life, and we want to be with our friends and hang out and hang out with family. that's our love language, like having fun. But we're also leaders as well. Sanguines are leaders, but we're the kind of leaders that draw people in, and we rally the troops, and we get people to do the things that they may be afraid to do, and we kind of encourage them along to get them to do those things. And then the phlegmatic is cool, calm, collected. They're chill personality style. Like, they're loyal and dependable. You can count on them for just about anything. And so those are the four personalities, and those are all the strengths. There are also challenges with each personality style, but we can talk about that later.
Yes, there are. And the phlegmatic too, doesn't the phlegmatic personality, if you have that type of personality, you can also mimic any of the personalities, correct, at times?
All of them, you can mimic all the
If you're
personality
phlegmatic,
styles.
that laid back, you can also be a leader, you can be strong, you can be purposeful, you can be a sanguine if you need to be. So,
Yep.
I mean, it's really, really interesting. I know when I've done it years ago with you, I mean, I actually keep it on my phone. I always look at it because I'm very self-aware, and it's very important to understand who you are in a myriad of situations, circumstances, people, leadership, wherever you are. So yeah, I wanted to mention that about the phlegmatic, because if you're a phlegmatic personality as your first default is not default, but that's your personality, then you can mimic the other personalities.
Yeah, and you can tell who the phlegmatics are by the fact that most of them will say, "Oh, I think I have all of those."
Yeah,
If you think you have all of those, you're probably a phlegmatic for one or two reasons. One, because phlegmatics aren't decision oriented. So they don't like making decisions. They would prefer other people to make it, so they don't have to have the blowback from it failing, or even it succeeding, and it becomes more work for them. But the other reason is because you're mimicking. You're mimicking
yeah,
all the other personality styles. So more than likely, those are the two reasons. There's some others why people
yeah,
mimic some of the others, but that has more to do with trauma. So
yeah, yeah,
listen, I'm so glad you're with me, because we're going to talk about nurturing personalities. And we're going to talk about self-care as it relates to marriage and ministry. Tell me why self-care, how you got into even thinking about self-care, because I know you did work on this when in your
yeah.
doctorate. So tell us
Yeah,
about that.
absolutely. Yeah, actually, when I did my doctorate at Pepperdine in organizational leadership, my dissertation was on self-care for leaders, really looking at psychological well-being. And I did a study on burnout because, I was in corporate America, or I am in corporate America, and I'm also in ministry. But I saw, as far as business owners, small business owners, my study was, business owners with companies like under 25 million. So whether you're 0 or 25 million, small businesses, where we would often get burned out because we did not give ourselves permission. We didn't take the time. We didn't sometimes have the resources or the tools to really make sure that we take care of ourselves first, that we put our masks on first, that proverbial when you get on the airplane, so that you can take care of other people. And so I saw a lot of burnout. I was once, Karen, the burned out leader. And so self-care, I say, is a practice because we have to practice it every day. It's intentional, especially when you have a lot of responsibility, a lot to steward over, assignments, ministry, business, corporate America. Wherever you land, whatever you have stewardship over, most of us have a lot of responsibility, a lot of people that we're responsible for. So I was once the burned out leader, and I wanted to, I felt like God gave me a mission to really, in this next part of my life, to really work with leaders, teams, corporations, C-suite leaders, ministry leaders, to really make sure that we are nurturing ourselves so that we can be the best. We can have psychological well-being, spiritual well-being, physical well-being, all of the above, the whole person.
Gotcha. That is so good, because I don't think people even recognize when they're the burnt out leader. I think people think, when you're, especially as a choleric, right? As a choleric, you're always striving to be the best at
Oh
whatever
yeah.
it is you do, right? And you want to make sure that you don't fail at anything. And so a lot of times, and it's funny because I'll tell a choleric that they are a workaholic. And they're like, I'm not a workaholic. but all they do is work, and they
Right.
don't see it in themselves. And so it's very easy, I think, for certain personalities to become burnt out. Melancholies too, because both of those personalities are workers, right? And but they work for different reasons. The choleric is strategic, is business oriented, is goal oriented, and the melancholy is purpose oriented, right? It's about purpose. It's about getting to the end of something, making something happen, about causes and things of that nature. So those two personalities tend to get burnt out really very easily. So let me ask you a question. How would you define self care within the context of marriage and ministry? How
Well,
would you look
first,
at it that way?
yeah. So first of all, I think because I'm in marriage and ministry, and and all those great things, how I look at it is the ability to really, again, care for yourself first, so that you can then care for your spouse, your partner, and then, again, your organization, or whatever the ministry field is. But it's important to look at, how and in what ways do I make sure that, again, I'm a whole person. I'm nurturing myself. I'm nurturing my personality. I'm healthy in every area. And that's not just because we're talking about psychological well-being. That's not just physical, but physical is a big part of it. But you want to be emotionally healthy. You want to be spiritually healthy. You want to be physically healthy, and then that psychological piece as well. So I think how I see it. It's just that whole, that four part of making sure that you are healthy and whole in every area, and being really intentional about it, because it's a reason why self-care is becoming, a really important topic and a really relevant topic in the world today.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, because one of the things I think people get confused with self care and selfishness, because some people think that it's selfish for me to think of myself or to take care of myself when there's so many other people to take care of. There are people in need, or I need to, take care of my spouse or my children. I need to make sure I'm caring for my employees, the ministry workers, in your case, being a first lady, your whole congregation. So, what is the difference between self care and selfishness?
Well, self-care, I always look at the example of, because I travel quite a bit and I fly a lot. And I think about, when you get on the plane, one of the first things they tell you before you go up in the air is, if anything happens to this plane, if this plane goes down, if anything happens, you lose cabin pressure, put your mask on first. In other words, don't help everybody else before you help yourself, because in that situation, you have about 15 seconds before everybody's unconscious if that cabin loses pressure. So I always like to use that example, because it's so important to put your mask on first. And we don't, again, often give ourselves permission in marriage and ministry to do those things, to actually take care of yourself first. And that is not a selfish thing. It's actually biblical. We need to take care of ourselves so that we can be healthy, and we need to know ourselves, take care of ourselves, so that we can be effective in ministry, effective in kingdom business, effective in corporate America. So if you're not healthy, how can you help anybody else? And that includes your spouse. I think it's an opportunity for us to be a models even to our spouses, and I'm going to speak as a women to our husbands. I'll say it that way, because I'm not a husband, I'm a wife. So, it's important that I model self-care, so that, when my husband is busy and he has so many people that count on him, and so many people that need him and need things from him, and he, the ministry is important, and it takes up a lot of your time, takes up a lot of your energy. When I model that in our relationship and in our marriage, it's like, modeling, it's Christ-like. It's modeling what Christ wants us to do. He wants us to take care of ourselves, because we want to live long. We want to live as long as possible. And we want to be responsible for what we can be responsible for. And that is taking care of ourselves.
I love that. I love that. And I think one of the things, as you were talking about the airplane, I was thinking about that, and I'm so sorry. Right in the middle of the conversation, I realized I'm not plugged in. I'm gonna lose juice in a minute. Excuse me.
While you're doing that, I'm going to talk about some comments because number one, I see that First Lady Melinda Chisholm is here.
Hi,
Our
First
beloved
Lady.
Celeste Owens' mom, she said these are Celeste's two BFFs, and God rest her soul. She's in heaven resting, and we miss her dearly.
Absolutely.
I still, sometimes I pick up the phone and want to call her, but she is the one who introduced us. But we want to send a shout out to our mother, Melinda Chisholm, and we see Pastor Deborah's on, my colleague Candy from California, one of my doctoral cohorts is here. Jackie O is here, and they're just giving great comments. First Lady Keisha James, she is an amazing business owner and prophetess, first lady. So we're glad to see all of you here. And so I just want to thank us as we see your comments. They're amazing.
Thank you for doing that. They are amazing. Thank you so much. And you're right, First Lady Keisha. If we don't take care of ourselves, we cannot help others. Self-care is necessary. And that's what I was getting ready to say. It just reminds me of it's your cup is empty. You can't give anything to anybody else. So you have got to make sure you're taking care of yourself. But some of the personalities do better with that than other personalities, right? So the sanguine, we're living our best lives. we fly by the seat of our pants. We're living in the moment. And so we take care of ourselves, sometimes to the detriment of everything else. So we have to be careful not to be just, selfish rather than, just doing self-care and also caring for others. The phlegmatic can be disinterested and uninvolved. And so they have to be careful not to get stuck in that mode and become selfish as well. So, some people, struggle with self-care and some don't. Like you can count on a phlegmatic is going to be taking a nap and taking care of themselves. All right. So let's talk a little bit about some of the common challenges that individuals face while trying to prioritize self-care in the midst of marriage and ministry responsibilities. Because I know that you have a lot of responsibilities. You are a business owner. You run your business. You're constantly doing this, that, and the other. And you're first lady, which is a huge responsibility. And I'm sure you have ministries under that responsibility. So how do you navigate that? How do you, work to make sure that you're balancing that in your marriage as well as ministry?
I want to say the number one thing to balance is boundaries. I'm going to say it again, boundaries. You have to have boundaries. And especially, I know we have a lot of ministry leaders on the line as well as corporate leaders, but boundaries are so important, especially in ministry, because again, there's so many needs. There's so many things to do, to take care of. You're pulled on in so many different ways. This, that, and the other. Both you and your spouse, especially when you're in ministry together, you're both pulled on. And then as a husband and wife, you have to take care of each other. When you come home, see, people don't realize they love the pastor and they love the first lady, but they don't realize that when we go home, we have to make sure we have to make sure we're covered. We have to make sure that we're taking care of each other. I have to make sure my husband has anything, because sometimes, with us, because we're so busy, we have to make sure we eat. We're accountable to each other. Did you eat? What are we eating today? What are we doing? What are we doing for lunch? Just even some of the basic things. So boundaries are so important to have within the marriage and then outside of the marriage, where you, sometimes cut off a time to say, hey, we know everybody needs something. Everybody needs a word. Everybody needs a push, encouragement, inspiration. But here's what we are doing. Here's what our schedule looks like. And those boundaries are important because they protect your energy. They protect your physical. They protect even that spiritual part, because people will bring and they will take everything from you if they can. I'm just telling you, if they can.
Yeah.
So it's up to us, that responsibility, boundaries and that responsibility to make sure that we are, being intentional about our time and our energy and protecting ourselves in those ways when you're in your marriage, and especially in ministry, especially pastoral ministry.
Oh yeah. And Pastor Deborah says, yes, boundaries are extremely important. I had to give myself permission to exercise boundaries and not feel bad about it. There's
Yes.
so many, and that's why I was going to ask you, and I'm glad she said that, because being um, in the ministry and your husband being a senior pastor and you being the first lady of a church, um, sometimes you do, like, somebody's calling you and they want prayer, because something's happening to one of your congregants, or there's something, there are important things that are happening in the church community. You want to be able to be there for your people. But if you don't have the boundaries, and I know it has to be hard, if you set the boundaries, how do you deal with not feeling bad about the boundaries that you set? And when you
Yeah.
know that there's a need out there, because there's always going to be a need.
Yeah, and you have to know that. Thank you, Pastor D. Washington, D.C. is in the house. I know. It's so important with boundaries, with being able to give yourself permission to say, I need to stop. And it is. It's a practice. That's a part of self-care. This is a part of self-care. That's what we're talking about. It's a part of it. It's a part of your responsibility as a leader to say, I need to make sure that I'm whole and healthy so that I can minister to you. Because like you said, everybody's going to have needs. And sometimes it's not just one person calling. Sometimes it's 20 people calling, or 25 people calling, or 30 different issues that we need to take care of throughout the day. And in a moment's notice, we have to take care of this part of the day. Our day actually functions in different sections. We don't even look at like the day. We have, one part of the day, the middle of the day, we have the evening, because all of those things, carry with it different responsibilities for us.
Wow.
And I know you as other leaders, whether it's events to attend, your speaking engagements, people are calling you besides what you do, in the normal congregation. So, and even business owners, same thing, events, different things that are demanded for your team. So another thing that's important with the boundaries is really, to the best of your abilities, having a great team working with you. I always ask leaders, who's on your mountain? Who is with you in this? Who is on your mountain? Because we have to make sure that we understand, and that part of that giving yourself permission is you can't do everything, and you don't have to do everything.
That's right.
And sometimes if you need resources, you can really pray and ask God, because I tell people are generous. Even if you can't pay salary, you may have to say, can you help me? And people are generous until you get to a point where you can. And then you make sure you reward, those people who are on your mountain with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you a question. In thinking about the personalities, because I know you know them, what do you think your husband's personality styles are? Because you have a primary and a secondary.
We need him to take the test. But I think everybody, if anybody knows him too, they would say, yes, he's a boss. He's definitely a boss. Our personalities are similar. He is a boss. The same. And yes, and he is melancholy.
Okay, I can see the melancholy.
What'd you say?
I can see the melancholy when I met him.
You told me that before. When we first got married, I remember you telling me, because I didn't see the melancholy. I saw his boss, because he is a boss. So he has a very strong personality like me. Yay, everybody. Yes, we both have very strong personalities, and we're both melancholy. And so you pointed that out to me, Karen, like when I was telling you some things, you're like, yeah, he's a melancholy. It sounds like he's a melancholy. Mm-hmm. So we have the similar personality types, but we're definitely going to get him to take it. I told him I definitely want him to take the personality test.
Well, I'll make sure I send you one for him.
Yes.
I asked that question because navigating in a relationship, is a marriage relationship especially, or any kind of interpersonal relationship, understanding each other's personality styles and each other's triggers, because we have triggers in our personalities. There's certain things that trigger us. When you are choleric, it's my way or the highway, right? I'm always right about everything. And when I'm not right, I know how to convince you that I am right.
And imagine having two of those in one house.
I already know, girl, because I'm a sanguine choleric, and my husband's a choleric sanguine.
Yes.
So I know how that is. And I always say, when we're sanguines, we're like the party, the fun house, the vacationers. We're having a great time living life to the fullest. But when we're choleric, we're like two bulls in a china cabinet. Everybody's right. Everybody wants their way, And so having to balance that can be a struggle. So my question to you is, knowing that you guys have the same personality styles, and probably the same order, you're probably both choleric melancholies, right?
Yes.
How do you balance that? Because, let me give you an example of how I balance it in ministry and at home, right? In ministry, because I was a speaker and my husband did the background stuff, he was my facilitations manager. So he made sure that everything got set up the way it was supposed to, that he met whatever vendors, that whatever food was coming into the, location, and the seating, everything was, per the specs, right? And I handle everything on the platform, my speaking, how I want to see the audience, that kind of thing. And so that's how we did it in ministry. And at home, we split our house up in everything inside I take care of, everything outside you take care of, right? So how do you guys manage that dynamic in the home and in ministry?
Well, a lot of it is prayer. It's prayer. Number one. That's the first thing. It's prayer.
God
And I
knows.
mean that. I mean that because really what we had to do, because our personalities are so similar, we have to make sure that we are both being very strategic, and what we do, because we can both handle pretty much everything, whatever it is, we can both of us are well capable. So we have to really understand, like you said, the trigger points, um, what's happening, how we view things, how we communicate. Communication is really, really important. And we make sure that we continue to talk and work things out and really be strategic. And like you said, for example, what happens inside and what happens outside. Um, you know, we have to know each other's strengths. So my husband is amazing. He'll step back. He knows what I do in leadership and construction. And he actually said today, he made a comment today, we were talking, and he said, you know what, I can project manage anything if I needed to. He said, but if um, XYZ asked you to come in and we need to build a building, he said, I'm going to step back and let you do it because you've been doing this for 27 years. I don't have to do that. You know what I mean? I
Right.
know. So I think it's knowing who you are, and again, knowing your place. Like my husband never took the personality test, but he's self-aware. He knows what his strengths are, what he can do, what he can't do, and me as well. So even in ministry, I know that he's been pastoring for 34 years.
Yeah.
So there are some things, I am a helpmeet. I'm there to help, but there are a lot of things that are already in place I don't need to do, but
Mhm.
then there are things where I say, okay, let's do this. Let's strategize, because I'm a strategist. I'm a master strategist. That's my
Yes.
gift. So how do we grow? How do we move forward? How do we move into this? How do we, do XYZ and maintain this location? How do we do South Africa? How do we do all of these opportunities? Then I'm really good at that, with putting things together and putting strategy together and putting it together in a way where we're not burned out.
Right. Right. I love it.
Because as a pastor, he's going to work, 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 work. And then I'm going to come with a strategy that says, okay, let's look at how we can do this effectively and efficiently, how we can bring our team in, who's on our mountain. And let's do this so that we can be healthy. And at the end of the day, we can take care of ourselves and we can enjoy each other. Because I want to bring that up. It's so important in marriage that you don't let that slip away. You have
So
to
true.
enjoy each other. That's what God gave us. Like, I love my husband. I love to be with him. I love to travel with him. I love him.
I
He's
love
amazing.
that.
Yeah,
I
he
love
really is. And
Yeah.
but I have to protect that time, because if I
Yeah.
don't, all that will slip away too, Karen. All that
Yeah.
will be gone. The people will, oh, we need you, or can you
Yeah.
come and can you do this? Can you do that? And then vice versa for me too with my schedule.
Yeah. So it's two things I heard from that. And that is protecting the relationship, right? What's important
Yes.
is prioritizing and protecting your relationship, are the key components, but also balance, right?
Yes.
Balancing things. And even I tell people this all the time. They say, what are the two most important, what are the two personalities that get along the best? In every person, you can get along with any personality, but you just have to learn to balance each other's strengths and help overcome, help each other to overcome each other's weaknesses. Because where I might be strong, he might be weak. Where I may be weak, he may be strong. And you're balancing those things so that you get the best out of both people. And I
Yeah.
think it's important for people to understand that. But sometimes we get in a place where our personality is so strong that we feel
Yeah.
we have to take care of everything. We have to do everything for you. We have to make things happen. Or our personality is so mild and supportive that we don't have to make a decision, or we don't have to, step forward.
Yeah.
I want to understand, like, have you ever experienced a time when you had, burnout, or feelings that you were overwhelmed in your marriage, or in ministry? Have you ever felt that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And at those times is when I'll speak for myself as a choleric melancholy. I have to make sure I communicate, because if I'm overwhelmed, stressed out, bogged down, that purposeful side of me is not going to work. It's going to be stagnant. It's going to be stuck.
Mhm.
And and then my choleric side, the go getter, I'm going to be in a state of I'm exhausted. So when yes, I have had burnout. My husband has had burnout. And that's the time where we have to come together, talk about it, pull away. And then that's my part of it. That's like, I'm strong in that area to say, hey, because that's one thing my parents taught us, like years, in marriage. Make sure you have a vacation every quarter. Make sure you're going
Mhm.
away, even if it's for a weekend. Do something where you can connect and you can have fun,
Absolutely.
because everything is going on and life is happening. And not only is life happening, but disruption is happening. Spiritual leaders. Another reason why I did my dissertation, I actually wanted to do it on spiritual leaders and business owners, but as they say at Pepperdine, the best dissertation is a done dissertation, and then you save the world later. So,
Right.
but the other true population that is a passion that God has called me to is leaders, is spiritual leaders, because we don't always have a model, and there are so many spiritual
Yeah.
leaders committing suicide in the last like
Wow.
5 to 7 years. The suicide rate among spiritual leaders, and I'm just going deep, has been at an all-time high, because we are not giving ourselves that permission, and we haven't seen it modeled. And so that's what God has called me to do, and even my husband, to model that for
Yes.
leaders, corporate leaders and spiritual leaders. We are both king and priest. We're in the dual. We're dual. Kingdom, marketplace, and
Yeah.
ministry. And so that is so important. But yes, we've been the burned out leaders, and that's when we've had to really pull back and really do some of the things I'm talking about. Really look at our boundaries. What do we need to rethink? How do we retool this? Because guess what? At the end of the day, our relationship is the most important, so that we
Yeah.
can come as a unit to the people of God, God's people in His kingdom, and to our assignments, whether it's marketplace or ministry, and we can show up effectively and with power. And that's how we always want to show up. And to do
Yeah.
that, you really do have to be intentional, and you have to make sure you're responsible for self-care.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned that too, because I did not know about spiritual leaders committing suicide.
Yeah.
That is so disheartening for me. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's why self-care is so important. If you put yourself in a place of burnout, then you start to, that stuff starts to eat at you and
Yeah.
wear on you. And then you let the devil in, and all of a sudden you feel defeated, and you feel like there's no hope. And then that's the kind of thing that leads to a suicide. So
Mhm.
I'm really
And first of all,
heartbroken.
let me tell you about the devil. He's trying to get in any way he can,
Yeah.
at any
Every
way,
any and
any
every way.
open door, open window, crack, anything he can do, hairline crack. He is trying
Yeah.
to get in, and he will use anybody. I
Anybody.
say sometimes I say Sometimes people let the devil use them for free,
Yeah.
but he will use anybody that he can. So it is important to, make sure that you are protecting your marriage and protecting your
Yes.
relationship, because it's such a blessing, such a God-given blessing.
Yes.
It's nothing like having, an amazing person in your life. It's nothing like it. And I'm grateful.
And I would also say this. I have done this every day for the last almost year. Whenever something is really challenging for me or I feel overwhelmed by something, I start with the serenity prayer. God,
Mm,
grant me the serenity, which means peace and calm, right? To accept the things I cannot change. We can't change our spouses. We can't change the ministry. We can't change our congregation. We can't change our coworkers, our friends, our children, our parents. Um, the courage to change the things I can. You can change you, your perspective, your attitude. There's a lot you can change about
yeah,
yourself,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
the wisdom to know the difference.
yeah.
Amen. So I do that
Amen.
every time I feel stressed about something or
Yeah.
overwhelmed. It's a tool that I use. So I hope that that's something that other people will use as well. All
Yeah,
right.
and you know what? You told me, Karen, I don't know if you remember this, some years ago, you were actually in New York, and I think we were doing something with Dr. Celeste. You were in New York,
Yes.
and one of the things, we had a deep conversation. We had our group together, and you said, Sandra, everything is not, this blesses me to this day. You said everything is not black and white, because here I am, choleric.
Right.
It's black
Black
and
or
white to
white.
me. It's
That's
black
right.
or white. That's
That's
it.
right.
And you
That's
and you
right.
told me, and I hear it like reverberating in my ears when you said, Sandra, there is a gray. There is a gray. And we have to understand that. And that prayer of serenity brings us to that. And one of the scriptures, because I asked God for a scripture tonight, just I always like to give the word of God, is Proverbs 4:7. And you just hit on it. And it's wisdom. It talks about that wisdom is the principal thing.
Yeah.
And if you ask for wisdom, it says, is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and in all thy getting, get an understanding. So, there is a learning, there is a gray, there is
Mhm.
a place of wisdom that we need to step into in marriage and in ministry, and in corporate. I'm going to add that in there, because what wisdom does is it gives us that strategy to do and say the right thing at the right time.
Yes.
So
Yes.
timing is very, very important when we're talking about being successful and nurturing our personalities, nurturing each other, nurturing our spouses, really praying and asking God for wisdom. Another scripture was Matthew 7:7 and 8, where it says, ask and it shall be given. Seek
Yes.
and ye shall find. Knock and the door will be open unto you. If
Yes.
you ask, it says, if anyone who asked, the door will be open. And so
Hallelujah.
God is very generous. He's if I talk to you, Karen, and I ask you, or we're asking any of our listeners tonight, hey, can you do X, Y, and Z? You would not answer me in 10 years. You would answer me right away. So God is saying, utilize that principle of wisdom and asking for strategy for
Yes.
burnout, asking for strategy in your marriage, asking for strategy in your businesses, asking for strategy, like, how do I really go forth effectively with wisdom, doing things in the right time, and
Yes.
at the right time. So that wisdom piece is so key.
Yeah, I also think that the sanguine personality jumps into things, right? So we jump head first before if there's a pool, we're going to jump head first before we look and see if there's water in the pool. It's just the way we do things. Cholerics are also people who are eager to get things moving and shaking, right? Um, and melancholies are more serious minded, so they really think things through, sometimes thinking too long that they
Yeah.
miss an opportunity, and a phlegmatic just want to be in the background being supportive. Now, the reason why I brought that up is because I always say this saying, and the saying is, every good thing is not a God thing for you. So even though we may have a good situation that comes up in ministry, right? A good opportunity that comes up in ministry. Is it a God thing for you? Did God call you to that thing? Right. And I just
Right.
remember when I was running my ministry, the Daughters of Destiny, I remember wanting to do all these different things. And my vice president said to me, yeah, but are you called to do that? Like, are you called to do that? Or are you called to connect the people who are doing it and partnering with them, as divine connections, right? And that's when it hit me. Every good thing is not a God thing for you. And so once you recognize that,
Mhm.
that's another way to put boundaries around your relationship with people. So
Absolutely.
let's talk about how do you strike the balance between meeting the needs of your spouse and the demands of your ministry while taking care of yourself too. How do you do that?
How do you strike the balance? Well, it is, you know what, again, I think we've been talking about it, is you strike the balance with intention, with really looking at your strengths, your weaknesses, with understanding your personality types, understanding what works and what doesn't work, really doing a filter of what worked here, what didn't work. Because, and what do we need to improve? And then what do we need to take out? What do we need to change so that again we can make sure that our unit is whole and we are effective. So it's very important to do what I call that filter. What is working? What's not working? And be honest about it. Be honest about what is happening, what's working, what's not working. One of my good friends said to me, a lifelong friend, she said to me, as far as communication and marriage, she said, listen, it's really never a good time to talk about things. Yes, you want to be wise, you want to talk about things, but you also don't want to let things fester, things sit. You want to talk about things. And you want to realize that is my spouse, that is my mate. So I can talk to them. I can talk to, let me not let it take a root and grow a tree in my mind over, 5 months. But again, we want to use wisdom and not talk if you're angry or different things like that. You want to use that type of wisdom, but in all, you want to make sure you're striking that balance with communication, with looking at how do we improve, how do we set our goals together. That's another thing. Goal setting as a couple is
Mm,
important. What do we want to do? Just like you would do to have an effective. We all do it to have effective businesses, ministries. We set goals. We do our kind of our mission, our vision. I coach leaders really all over the nation. And one of the things that we work on, because I do a lot with around self-care with leaders and high level leaders, because again, we need a leader, we need coaching, we need to
yes.
be, and even myself, I have a coach, I have a leader, that I work with. And I've always been in that vein to make sure that we are, really effective, and we are really making sure we're balanced, and we are again protecting that unit that God has given us. God loves marriage, and so when you're married and in ministry, or your spouse is in ministry, even if you're not in ministry, your spouse is in ministry. It's important to understand that responsibility.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think that is so important because sometimes one person is in ministry and the other one is not.
Yes.
And that's ministry is a whole dynamic that you really need to understand, and how people are operating in their personalities or through their personalities in ministry as well as at home. Like my in ministry and in business, I show up as a choleric
Yeah.
all day long, right? Um, but in my personal life, I probably show up more as a sanguine. And I was just thinking when you were talking about setting goals as a couple, sanguines, we hate goals. We want to fly by the seat of our pants. Phlegmatics, they hate goals. They want everything to be easy. Why can't we just move on in the world? And why we got to do that kind of stuff? Meet a goal and have a strategy but the cholerics and the sanguines, they love the strategy and the 5 year and 10 year plans, and we struggle with that as sanguines and phlegmatics, right? And it's the kind of thing that I had to grapple with in order to have a podcast. Like I had to have a strategy in order to run a business. You have to have a strategy.
Yeah.
So why not have a strategy in your marriage? Why
Yeah.
not have a strategy in your ministry? That isn't, it makes sense to do that. But I think it's, there's certain personalities that struggle with that. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think there are, and that's why it's important to have, when I work with my team, I do one of the assessments I do is called a Colby A, and I look at in that assessment how do we work together. That's what that assessment looks at. It's Karen Colby, and it's more of it's a a corporate uh, type of assessment. But I look at how do we work together. So in that same vein, I look at my team, because my husband and I are a team. So how do we work together? What again are our personality? What are our proclivities? What are our strengths, our weaknesses? It's like you can do all the things in corporate America that you do here. A SWOT analysis. What are the threats? What are the opportunities?
Right.
What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? Those are all models that we can use, and as resources in marriage to make sure that we're staying strong and that we are able to really set a really strong example to navigate life and navigate disruption and also innovate, because we come together because God has called us to a great work. We can innovate. There's so many opportunities. There's so many amazing things that we can do together, but we do have to make sure that we have the right people on our team. So because I'm and when I do like my Colby assessment, I'm an implementer. I'm a quick start. I'm going to implement. I'm going to start projects, but I am not a really high what we call fact finder. So I often have people on my team who are high fact finders. They're going to be researching. They're going to be, while I'm moving and I'm, implementing, because I'm a finisher, I'm going to finish. That's why people hire me, because if you hire me to do your project, I'm going to finish your project. It's going to be a success. So when, while I'm busy doing those things, how do I have to have the right people, and same in marriage, you want to make sure. So even before you get married, those of you who are not married, who are looking, you want to really look at the personality. How will that person work with my personality? How will we grow together? How will we fulfill the commission that God has given us, whether in marketplace or in ministry or both? Like my husband and I are. We're both in, like I said, we're marketplace and we're ministry.
Yeah.
So how and in what ways do we do those things?
I love it. So normally I do something called personality points to ponder, right? And I did that today. And I wanted to get your feedback on these. So we're going to talk a little bit about personality tips for self-care for the extroverts, which are the sanguines and the cholerics. Sanguine individuals are usually, they tend to be outgoing in nature, enthusiastic, and very social. But when it comes to self-care, they tend to prioritize activities that involve positive social interaction. That means we want to hang out and have fun with our buddies. They find rejuvenation and fulfillment in spending quality time with their spouse, engaging in joyful and exciting activities, and seeking social support within their ministry. So a lot of the ways we handle self-care is about being with people, hanging out with folks, getting our energy from other people. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, and that's important to know. Where do you get your energy from? Because some people are extroverted, and then I know you're probably going to talk about the introverted. Some people get their energy just by being alone, by being by themselves. They're their own best friends. Even in marriage, they can be alone. They can if you're in ministry, you can worship, just singing and praising and being by yourself. But then there are people who get their energy, who are center stage, who are with the crowds and they're getting their energy from other people. So I think again, it's important to know where you get your energy, whether it's extrovert or introvert or a mixture of both, because I'm actually a mixture of both. I am often on the stage and have been on the stage for years, and people say, oh, you're an extrovert. And I do have an extroverted personality, but I'm also an introvert. I love my quiet time. That's a part of my self-care. When I pull back and that shy part of me, some people probably say I'm not shy, but there is that part of me that, loves to be alone. Like I could travel alone. I've done that before. I don't have to have like a whole entourage and 50 million things to do and all of the, I can actually go and be at the beach and just be at the beach. And that's it. all
And
day.
I'm glad you said that too, because you can be one extroverted personality style and one introverted personality style, which you are.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for people to understand that, because sometimes you want to be around people and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you need to regroup. So let's talk about the choleric personality. The choleric personality tends to be assertive, determined. They have strong leadership qualities, but when it comes to self care, they often prioritize maintaining a sense of control and striving to achieve their goals. So that's paramount for them, is getting things done and being in control of whatever happens. Cholerics focus on self care practices that recharge and sustain their motivation. So they have to have something that's going to recharge them.
Yeah.
They may involve setting clear boundaries, engaging in strategic planning, and dedicating time to physical exercise or personal development. That's one thing about a choleric. A choleric needs activity. So you typically, when they're stressed out or have a lot going on, they go straight to the gym, or they walk, or they do something that, I have a mirror exercise equipment, or they go to the mirror, or what's the other one that's like, it's called a tonal, or
Yeah.
whatever you do. So what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that I definitely think that's true because I'm a choleric. So it's like I to be bored is not good for me. Like
Yeah,
I don't do well with boredom. Um, whatever the situation is, I personally as a choleric need to be doing something, some type of activity. And so I'm always doing personal development. And a lot of my colleagues who are choleric are always looking at personal developments. How can we set goals? How can we create? What can we design? What's the blueprint? What's next? So I definitely think that is true. And when we do self-care, it's usually intentional. But I do think cholerics need to do more self-care
I
because
agree.
we can get lost in the sauce. We can get lost in the busyness, lost in everybody needing us, lost in that, and that is what we need to really watch for and create boundaries around and protection around when it comes to that and self-care, because we can
Yes.
sometimes put ourselves on the back burner because we are taking care of everybody else, because we are leaders and we are leader of leaders. So yeah,
Yep.
I agree with that.
So cholerics, you got to schedule some downtime. You got to do it.
Yes.
Let's talk about the introverts. The introverts, the melancholy individuals, they often are introspective, analytical, and very detail oriented. For them, self care may involve being introspective. In other words, we said that the extroverts get their energy from other people, the introverts get their energy from within, right? So they need introspection and reflection, and in order to maintain their emotional well-being. They also find some solace in rejuvenation through activities like journaling, meditation, creative pursuits, seeking out quiet and peaceful environments. Yes. When you say sometimes I need my time, I need my quiet time, the melancholies need space, silence. They need for you to just back up off them for a bit in order for them to recharge their batteries. What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So I'm melancholy. My husband's melancholy. I absolutely agree with that. We need space and time. I know personally, my time is in the morning. I need like the first hour of the day to really make sure I'm meditating. I have my time. I walk. I have, my exercise. It's like I need my time. And at that time is honestly in the mornings. And I get up very early. Like you said, I tell people I probably do more than most people do before 8 a.m. But I try to get um, in that time, I get my refueling. I get my charge for the day. I get my charge for, okay, I have this speaking engagement. Okay, I have to design this. I have this client. I have to make sure this happens. And I get my charge and my and that part of me, that push from my quiet time as a melancholy. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because I have developed quiet time. Every morning I get up and I do quiet time, I pray, I journal, I do all these things, and I find myself, I'm more peaceful that way.
Yes.
And but it took some time to get to that space, because I sometimes I would fall asleep until I got to a where it was a habit for me to do that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the fourth and final personality style, the phlegmatic. The phlegmatic is cool, calm, collected. They're easygoing and adaptable. But when it comes to self care, they may prioritize creating a balanced and harmonious environment for themselves and their relationships. Phlegmatics may engage in self care practices which promote relaxation. Now, you can always count on a phlegmatic relaxing because they would rather sit than stand, and they would rather lay down than sit up. But they also believe in stress reduction and emotional balance. This is probably the personality who will get the most self care. They try to practice mindfulness and in leisure activities or spending time in nature. So, what's your thoughts on the phlegmatic?
Yeah, that phlegmatic personality is probably our model for self-care. They're going to make sure that they are getting it in and that they are, no matter what, that they balance that. And I think that is so important because again, regardless of what your personality style is or type, self-care is so important. I believe God has that now at the forefront of for all of us as leaders. He wants us to make sure we care for ourselves and make sure that we are protecting the investment that he put into us
Yes.
so that we can really effectively work out in this world and be effective over what he's given us to steward over.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you, Dr. Sandra. You have got to tell us what is going on with you, what's coming up in the near future for Dr. Sandra Rice Hardy.
Yes, yes. First of all, you can visit my website at www.drsundra, it's sundra.com. And you can kind of see everything we're up to. We have some amazing things happening. I have a partnership with Pepperdine University. We just did an amazing leadership certificate program. It was phenomenal in Los Angeles in April. And we're doing it again in October 6th and 7th. We're offering a certificate in leadership, innovation, and executive well-being. So if you've enjoyed this and you need some additional tools, we have some people on who have been there, who have been through the program, our first graduating class, and who's visited the program. But it is a certificate in leadership and innovation and executive well-being, and it is a certificate from Pepperdine University. As a program I designed for Pepperdine in partnership with them, and it is amazing. You're talking about spiritual recharging. You're talking about, really high level leaders in the room, engaging and a safe place for leaders to rejuvenate, take their lives to the next level, personally and professionally, organizationally. And it is just amazing. So I want you to join us October 6th and 7th. Come and get your certificate. It's amazing because you will have a certificate from one of the top leadership universities in the country in Los Angeles, California. So it's October 6th and 7th. Come join us, and you can get more information from my website, www.sundra.com. We'd love to have you. It's going to be amazing. The first program, it blew us out of the water. I'm telling you, it was so amazing. I'm still being inspired by the leaders who were in the room from around the country. So yes, join us. That's what I'm up to next. And we have some other things coming up. So if you want to get in touch with me, I coach leaders, I consult with companies, and you can get all that from the website. I have an amazing coaching program that we're offering, a 90-day coaching program. And then we offer also a 12-month coaching program. But it's amazing if you want to get recharged, reset, you want to take your life to the next level. And sometimes, again, leaders need a leader. I have a leader. It's important for me. I've always taken in that practice. And so I love working with leaders who are doing, I'm talking about amazing things all over the world. So join us if you want to do coaching, consulting with your company, or the leadership certificate program coming up in October in Los Angeles.
I love it. Thank you, Sandra. I love you, sis. I thank you so much for appearing on Personality Speaking. Thank you for dropping all those wonderful nuggets on how we can manage our self care in our marriages and ministry. And I think that whether you're in ministry or not, or whether you're married or not, you understood how you have to have self care. So I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, sis.
You are so welcome. You are so welcome. And again, I want everybody to make sure you take the personality test. And you can go to, I know, Karen's website, but it is a great resource and a great tool to take with you. whether you're in corporate America, whether you're married, whether you're in ministry. So I want to encourage you all, as Dr. Karen has welcomed me here. I've taken the test many years ago, but make sure you take that because it is a great resource, and have your spouse take it as well. So thank you
Yes.
so much. Thank you so much, Karen. I've
Thank
enjoyed it tonight.
you.
The time went by so fast.
It sure did, right? Okay, so if you want to get that personality assessment, you can go to my website. It's beyond2llc.com. You can see it if you're in the chat. You can see it's the same as my account name, but it's beyondtwollc.com. And I just want to thank you guys for joining Personality Speaking, where our goal is to help you to build healthier, stronger relationships through the understanding of personalities. Next week's guest will be my friends, Pastor Deborah Evans, Pastor Ken Howard, and Pastor Neil Henderson. And guess what we're going to be talking about? Healing beyond the pews, navigating personalities, and finding wholeness after church hurt. Whoo! There have been
Wow.
some folks that's been hurt in the church, and we want you to get some healing. So join us next week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here. If you like this content, please like and subscribe and click the notification bell so you can get the latest videos. Thank you guys for joining us, and good night, and we love you. Take care, you guys.
Love you. Bye
Love
bye.
you.